Hello everyone, welcome in SC300 Microsoft Identity and Access Administrator training days. It's a 5 days training series and we will cover whatever we have in SC300 in first 4 days. And on very last day, we'll talk about what we have in exam prep. We'll discuss about what we have in some exam prep ideas, some kind of guidelines there. So before starting, let me introduce myself. My name is Saurabh Srivastava. In my current organization, I'm working as technical lead, and I have more than 16 plus years of experience in production and corporate deliveries. I served different roles in my past experience like IT architect, senior consultant, subject matter expert, and mainly my profile is moving around Microsoft technology. So I'm experienced in Azure Cloud, Microsoft 365, Office 365. If I talk about my experience, so I started with Windows Server 2003 in very early days. And since then, I have worked with almost all the flavors, all the versions, what we have in Windows Server, in Windows Client, in communication products, messaging, collaboration, System Center. So mainly my profile is moving around Microsoft technologies. I am MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer since last 11 years, and I have many certifications in Microsoft technologies especially. So let's start with what we have in our agenda, what we are going to cover. We'll talk about every day what we will cover in this training series, and accordingly we will move forward for the today's agenda. So first of all, if we talk about implement an identity management solution, we have different topics for every day agenda. Day one will be focusing on what we have in Microsoft Entra ID, configure and manage. Then we talk about implement initial configurations of Microsoft Entra ID, create, configure, and manage identities, and implement and manage external identities. These are 4 different topics that we are going to cover today. Tomorrow, we'll talk about these different topics that we have in day 2 agenda. Plan and implement Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication. Next, implement access management for Azure resources. Third, secure Microsoft Entra ID user with MFA. And the 4th topic, manage user authentication. These are 4 different topics that we will cover in our day 2 agenda. On day 3, we'll talk about plan and design the integration of enterprise applications for single sign-on and implement and monitor the integration of enterprise applications. These are 2 topics that we'll cover on day 3. On 4th day, we'll talk about these 3 topics: plan and implement entitlement management, plan and implement privileged access, and monitor and maintain Microsoft Entra ID. These are 3 topics. And on the last day, day 5, we'll talk about some certifications overview, and there would be some knowledge check, Q&A. We'll talk about what kind of question format we see there in exam. So these are all different kind of agenda we have in our 5-day training series. So today we're going to start with what we have in day 1. So once again, we'll talk about configure and manage Microsoft Entra ID. So we'll talk about how to configure and manage Entra ID with some, general options, what we have. What should be there for the initial configurations? We'll talk about this one. We'll talk about create, configure, and manage identities, user. We talk about groups. We talk about external identities as well. So these are different things that we're going to cover in our day 1 agenda. Definitely, along with this, every day you will get some homework activities that would be related to performing lab activities. Also, you can access Microsoft Learn, And there you will find SU300 MS Learn online resources that you can use for your exam preparation and also to enhance your knowledge and understanding. So we're going to start with the first one, implement initial configurations of Microsoft Entra ID. Let's see what we have in this, what different kind of topics here we're going to cover. So we talk about configure and manage Microsoft Entra ID roles, then configure delegation by using administrative units, and configure tenant-wide settings. You can see these are initial level of configurations, what we see in every Entra ID tenant. So I know you guys are already working on cloud products, cloud components, and you have idea about what is Entra ID. So definitely, if you are working on any kind of organization's Entra components, you'll be configuring some initial configurations related to managing user groups, configuring roles, configuring tenant settings, and many others. So we'll talk about these stuff here. And especially if you are starting in Entra ID from scratch and you don't have any prior experience in that, so no need to worry about. Definitely, whatever we are going to learn here today, you can you can learn more related to this SC300 and Entra ID by going to MS Learn pages, and definitely you can enhance your knowledge. So let's see what we have in configure and manage Microsoft Entra ID rules. So here we have, when we talk about Entra ID comes with directory related components that we use for managing users, groups, devices, applications, licenses, and many other. But in these, we have roles and responsibilities that we control, that we assign to our admins. And this is very important because you have to be sure Entra ID or other applications, other admin portals, these are only accessed by the right person, right admin at right time. So there are many different kind of roles and administrative, you can say administrative groups are there that we can use for assigning different kind of roles and responsibilities to our admins, to our developers, to our different kind of, you can say maybe any temporary admins, we can assign them and they will have that level of access. So where you find this, let me show you. This is a trial tenant, and here we have Entra ID page. In this Entra ID, basically we call it Entra Admin Center. And you can see this is intra.microsoft.com. So here if you log in with your ID and password, what is available with you, if you have rights, you can access this portal. By default, I am accessing this using my first admin account that we create in any cloud environment. And this is the global admin in this trial tenant. You can see it. This admin name is mod admin, and this is a global administrator. Now with this ID, definitely I can perform almost all the activities. But when you are not planning to grant global admin rights to everyone in your organization, and that should not be, you will assign different roles and responsibilities to your admins. So for this, what we do, let's see. Here, if you talk about Entra ID page, here we have different kind of options: users, groups, devices, applications, registrations. Then we have roles and admins. Then we have different kind of other components that we can configure. So if we talk about roles and admins, here we can see different kind of roles are there, and these roles and you can say administrative groups we can assign to our different admins. There are many. You can see we have AI administrator, application admin, application developer, and attribute log reader, billing admin, cloud device administrator. We have directory readers, and we have application specific roles as well. For example, Dynamics 365 roles, Exchange administrator. You can see global admins also there. We have Intune administrator, or maybe something like SharePoint admin, security reader, security administrator. These are different roles that we have in this list, and we can use this. We can assign these roles to our different admins and different kind of users if they want to perform some admin activities. So this we find here under roles and admins, and here we have all roles. Now, definitely we can create custom rules. I'll discuss about custom rules in our upcoming discussion. Using this option here, new custom role, I can create custom role if I want. But in most of the cases, whatever different roles you have here, these are more than sufficient for most of the organization. But still, after this, if you are in the need of creating a new role, this role you can create here. But definitely, this new role or new custom role is not the default option in Entra ID. Because when we talk about Entra ID licensing, this new custom role will not be available in your free Entra ID licensing model. I'll talk about what we have a licensing model as well. So these all different things will be very clear. So we have Entra ID rules. Definitely we can create custom rules if you want. Now, custom roles are something where, for example, if I am planning to assign any role from here to any admin, for example, I want to assign billing admin to someone, I can click on billing admin. Under assignment option, I can add assignment, and I can assign this role to any user, any admin in my organization. Very simple. Definitely, I can assign other roles as well. For example, I want to assign maybe Intune admin to someone. I can assign this role from here, add assignment. But sometimes, for example, there's a requirement you are assigning maybe a group of roles, for example, 3 to 4 roles every time to different admins or to different user in your organization. So in this case, you have to add the user in all these roles manually, one by one, every time. It would be better if you want to create something where we have these roles combined access, these role combination together into one. So for example, if I want to create a new role, I can click on new custom role here. In basic, you can add name. For example, I'm going to create test custom role. Now, definitely, this name should be very unique and logical in your organization, depending on why you are creating it. Okay, so you can add this name here. Then any description. This is a test role. Now here we have two options. Either I can start from scratch where I need to add permissions, or if you have any existing custom role already there, you can clone that custom role as well. So it may be possible you are not creating this custom role very first time. You have some custom role already there in your organization. So in this case, you can click on clone, the clone from the custom role, and you can clone any existing role if you want. So I'll go for the start from scratch with this option. Next. Now here you have to select permission, what permission you want to add in this custom role. Now here you should have clear visibility that for a role, what kind of roles and responsibilities or what kind of permissions you want to add. Because what permission you add here, this will be assigned to your admins or to your user when you assign this custom role to them. Just for example, I want to assign all the read permissions, but definitely you can select many if you want, and you can use a combination. My requirement is I want to add all the read permissions. So you can filter here. You can filter by keyword and you can add that roles. For example, I want to see all the read roles. You can see these all read roles are here listed. And I can assign this read role to this custom role. Selecting all these roles, all the read roles, next. And you can see all these permissions are added and simply click on create. Now you can see a test custom role is here and that is custom, and other roles are the built-in. Built-in in the sense, these are already added by Microsoft here. So custom role can be created, and once it's created, you can open it and you can go for adding this in any user profile or assigning user to this role. So creating custom role is possible, and definitely for that you need premium license. Free license is not related to, or free license is not giving you this option in this kind of custom role capability. So you should have P1, P2, any license, at least premium license should be there. And just for understanding, if I go back to this here once again to my home, or even that would be better option here. Instead of exploring these cards, you can click on Entra ID and overview. You notice what I'm using here. I'm using Microsoft Entra ID P2 license. P2 is premium 2 license, and this is higher than premium 1. We have one more licensing option that we'll talk about when we go for the licensing discussions in Entra ID. So with this, you can understand P2 is something where we get almost all the features, all the services, whatever we have in Entra ID. So this is interesting that we have P2 license. And if you are getting any hands-on lab with this SC300 training, in that lab, you'll be also getting this kind of trial tenant, and that trial tenant will have this P2 license already there in your lab environment. Now, in the next, so how to assign a role to a user or group? It's easy. We have different ways. First of all, I can go to roles and admins here. And I can simply select any role that I want to assign to my user or to my group. I can select any. For example, I'm going to select billing admin. I will go for the add assignment. Simply, I need to select member here. I have some dummy users here as well. Suppose I want to assign this role to Alex, to maybe Debra. You can also add groups as well if you like to. Right now, we don't have any group that is eligible for this, especially security group should be there. But definitely, I can add user and groups as well here. These two users I have selected. Simply next. Now here we have option if I want to make them eligible or active. Basically, eligibility criteria comes under when we are using a very advanced capability in role assignment. We call it PIM, Privileged Identity Management. We'll talk about that PIM in our upcoming discussions, I believe on 4th day. But right now I want to make it active. Active in the sense, I want to assign this role right now. Justification, maybe any business certification you want to add here. this role is assigned under testing, something like this. Assign now. And now these two users will be assigned with this role. This is the one option. Now we have another option. I can directly go to the user account. I can select any user here. For example, I'm going to select Alan. And now here, we can select assign role option and simply add assignment. Right now you can see Alan is already a global admin, but if you want to add more assignments here, for example, so you can select a role. Maybe I want to assign anything, for example, Teams admin. Okay. And simply next, again, make it active. Testing as justification, assign, and that's it. So we have two different ways. Either you can go to the roles directly and there you can add assignment, or you can go to the user properties or group properties and there you can add assignment. In this way, we can assign the role. But apart from this, we have another option. If your tenant is also activated for Microsoft 365, in this case, you can open Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So that would be admin.microsoft.com. Or let me simply go with office.com. Office.com is the welcome page for every user in Microsoft 365. And if you're admin, you will have admin tile available here. And I'll show this here in this. You can see I'm using, because I'm using this Edge browser and in private browsing. So automatically, whatever I have this account here is already added here in this page as well. And because I'm admin, I have this admin tile. So I can click on this admin tile. This will open admin.microsoft.com. So it's up to you if you want to go to admin.microsoft.com directly. Yes, you can go for that. Or you can go to office.com. You can check your applications and rights here as well. And you can also verify if you have any admin rights associated to your profile or not. So you can see here I am with this one and it's asking for setup MFA. I'm going to skip for now. Now in this M365 Admin Center, you see, if I go to roles tab and role assignment, here also we have the same option. We have these roles: AI admin, Exchange admin, global reader, help desk admin, service support administrator. And not only these roles, but if you click on show all roles, you see we have all these roles exactly same in number what you see in Entra ID. Now this is interesting to know. This roles assignment tab we are seeing here because of we have these entries in Entra ID. We don't have any directory system available that is, very separate or unique for M365. M365 is using Entra ID as a backbone where this is using all the directory components and capabilities. So it doesn't matter. You are modifying user groups or roles here in this Entra ID, or you're modifying user groups or roles here. Both are the same thing. And you can verify this. If I go to billing admin here, under assignment, you can see Deepra and Alex. These two are assigned here because we have added these two users in Entra ID here using this roles and admins tab. Now, if I want to assign some role here, definitely we can do it. What if I'm going to add a user or group here in the same billing admin from this place? Definitely, yes, we can do this. Let me add a user. Let me add Megan. And I need to refresh this one because sometimes when you configure something here in M365 or in Entra ID, these are not instantaneous. Sometimes we have to wait for 5 to 15 minutes when this will be reflected or updated. So I can refresh this one here to see. You can see Megan is here listed, and the same information will be reflecting here in Entra ID as well in Entra Admin Center. Let me show you. So if I go to billing admin once again, I will refresh this one. You can see Megan is listed now. So it doesn't matter you are going to manage it here or you are going to manage it from here. Both are the same thing. So this is something that what different kind of options we have when we want to assign role to users, and from different places we can manage it. Now, what next we have? So we can assign these roles to users and groups in different ways from Entra ID Admin Center, or also we can go to M365 and there we can assign these roles. Now, do we have option to assign roles to a subscription or maybe for a kind of broader scope? Answer is yes. Here we are talking about intra ID roles, or you can say intra admin roles. Or even here, we are talking about intra admin roles. But what about roles that we use with virtual machines, storage, or maybe you are creating any kind of firewall, you are creating any kind of SQL database in Azure environment. What we manage there, what we use there to control access of virtual machines, applications, SQL database, or maybe storage, or many other resources. In this case, what we have option 4, IAM, access control option. This IAM is available with every resource. And even this IAM is available with subscription, also at your management group level. So if you talk about hierarchy, especially for resources, what you have in the top, what you have at the top. At the top, you have tenant account. Next level, if you go downstream, next level is management groups. And then we have below to this, we have subscription. Below to subscription, we have resource groups. And below to resource groups, we have resources. So you can assign these kind of roles, these kind of permissions at different levels. Mainly when you talk about controlling or providing access to almost all the resources in your organization, we can add user here or admins here in IAM at management group level. Because under management groups, we have multiple subscriptions. So a person who is having the management group access, he will have all the access. He will have all the access related to all the subscriptions, all the resource group, all the resources. Now, so it's up to you. You want to add a role, basically go to the role assignment and add a person here. at management group level, at subscription level, at resource group level, or at resources level. So when we add a role, like when we are going to add someone here, we select what role I want to assign, basically the level of the role what you are going to assign, like for example, virtual machine admin, storage admin, what kind of assign access to user group or service principals. And definitely you can search user by name or email ID here and you add them. We also select here scope, like if you want to add a role for a resource here, and there you can define if the user will have the owner level access, contributor level access, or the reader level access. These are three main scope what we use at resource level control or resource level access control in IAM. So I would like to make it clear, these roles are related to the Entra ID management, Entra ID applications management, Exchange, SharePoint, Dynamics, application admin, or billing admin. These roles are related to the resource related management, where we talk about infrastructure as a service, platform as a service components. So we plan accordingly if we are going to configure these kind of management and role assignment. Now next, when we talk about Microsoft Entra ID roles for common delegation scenarios, where we can use this, we can restrict and manage application creations. We can also assign honors to any application. We can also assign built-in administrative roles, or we can create custom roles if we want. We have to keep in mind, Microsoft Cloud is entirely designed or based on zero trust framework. In zero trust, we follow simple concepts, simple guidelines that always follow least privilege, provide just-in-time access, and control just long enough access for any resource, for any role, for any data. So wherever is possible, always follow zero trust model. In a simple statement, zero trust represents a very simple concept, that is never trust, always verify. So it doesn't matter any access is there, any request is there, zero trust approach or zero trust based security settings, role assignments, this will always check access is valid or not, and accordingly, access will be granted to your data, resources, and other components. So it doesn't matter you are using Entra ID, you are using security controls, you are using Defender products, everywhere zero trust approaches is already used, and everything is based on the zero trust framework. So definitely we have built-in roles as we're talking about. In built-in, we have delegating app permissions. We can use application administrator role, cloud application admin role. If you're delegating app registrations, we have application developer role, like this one. Delegating app ownership, you have enterprise application owner role, application registration owner role. These different roles are built in, and we can assign these roles to our admins, to our developer according to their need. Now, next, when we talk about configure delegation by using administrative units, the question is, what is administrative unit? Let's talk about this. Basically, administrative units are the concept or the containers where we can limit the resource access or limit the admin control on a specific portion of your organization. For example, if I will assign a role to someone in my company, That is, for example, any kind of user administrator role. A user admin role can perform user management, user password changes, and many other capabilities. So if someone is working with user admin role, that person will have access to all the users in my organization. Doesn't matter, I have 100 users, 1,000 users, 10,000 users, or 100,000 users. A person with user admin role, he will be able to perform activities related to user in my organization. Now here we have a challenge. For example, I have different kind of offices. I have I have office in US, in UK, or in Australia. I have maybe 5,000 users working in US, 2,000 users in UK, 1,000 users in Australia. So definitely I can assign a user admin role to someone and he will be able to manage all these 6 or maybe 5 to 7 and 8,000 users. But what if I want to assign role in a way that if I'm assigning user admin role to someone in the US, that person will be able to manage only the US users. And that person will not have access to the UK users. I want to assign user admin role to someone in UK, and that person will have all the UK user access, or he will be able to perform changes. Also for Australia, I want to, assign a user admin role to someone in my Australia region, and that admin will have the access or control on Australian users. Is this possible? Answer is yes. In this case, we can create administrative units, one administrative unit for US, another administrative unit for UK, and one more administrative unit for my Australia business. And there we can add what role I want to add there, and then I can assign these roles to my specific admins in US, UK, and Australia. It's good when you want to control these roles in a portion of your organization. For example, think about any university. In university, there would be different kind of sections, different kind of basically schools, like a school for business, a school of engineering, and many others. For each school, there has a team of IT admins who control, access, manage users, and set policies for their school. Definitely, it's not logical that a school of business IT team, they are managing all the users and components for the school of engineering. I want to make it separate. I want to make IT admins for a school of business, they will be able to manage resources, user inside this one only. And IT admins of School of Engineering, they will be managing here. So for that, we use administrative unit. So admin unit create a logical boundary for your roles that you can perform activities only under the administrative unit, what you are creating. So this is something, if you want to design this kind of scenario, suppose you have a very big enterprise company and you want to design these kind of administrative units, definitely this level of control and administrations are possible. Now, so common delegation scenarios, if you talk about admin units, now we know admin units can be configured for portion of your organization. So it depends how you want to control different portions, what role you want to assign to your admins, and configuring the scope. Also, keep in mind when you're configuring an administrator unit, once again, zero trust approach will come in picture. So least privilege, just-in-time access, and just long enough access will be always, you have to always consider these when you are going to configure these admin units. So definitely you can go to Entra ID, and there you can create administrative units, add, like adding a school of engineering, a school of business, and many others where you can configure different roles and assigning these roles to specific admins. So this level of control we have, and you can find this here. And if you are going to basically, it's easy if you want to configure this from Microsoft 365 Admin Center. You can see under roles, the admin units are there listed. It's easy, like it's visible, and in M365 Admin Center, you get straightforward configurations. So click here, add units, and you can configure these settings here. Now what comes under tenant-wide setting? Tenant-wide setting is something where you're configuring tenant-related configurations. Let's talk about what we have in this. So tenant-wide setting applies to your entire tenant, whatever you change. Generally, we change here the global values or default values, whatever we have in the tenant properties. We can configure if you want to enable your members and guest user that if they can register applications, if they can, sign in with the LinkedIn ID or not, managing security defaults or external collaboration settings. These all things we can configure in tenant-wide settings. Where you find it, what kind of settings are there, we'll talk about. So there are many. So first of all, when you talk about user settings, the user settings are something that we can configure, and this will be applied to the entire organization level. Where do you find this user setting? Let me show you. So for user settings in Entra ID portal, click on Users tab, click on User Settings, and here you can find different kind of default settings here. If user can register applications, yes or no. Restrict non-admin users from creating tenants, yes or no. User can create security groups, yes or no. Generally, these options are yes. Also, in guest user access restrictions. If guest user have the same access as member, or guest user have limited access to the properties and membership of directory objects, and then guest user access is restricted to properties and membership of their own directory objects. These are some kind of common settings that what we have here. Along with this, you can see other options, administration center access, also LinkedIn account connections if you want to enable or disable. So these settings we see under user settings. According to the organization's need, we enable or disable these different kind of options here. Now, next is user settings for external user. Where you can find this? This basically comes under manage external collaboration. If you click on this option, you see here we have guest user access. Basically, this defines how your organization will enable guest user access, what level of access you want to enable. So the first option says guest user have the same access as member. Would you like to present guest with the permissions like your own users? Maybe no. So default option is guest user have limited access to the properties and membership of the directory objects. Definitely, I can invite guest user from external organization, so they will have the limited options, limited rights to read the informations. Next is guest user access is restricted to properties and membership of their own directory objects. Now in this, guest user will have the restrictions even if they are accessing their own directory objects or their own other user informations. So generally, we go for this one is a balanced one. Next setting comes here, guest invite settings. Who can invite guest in this tenant? And by default, the setting is anyone in the organization can invite guest user, including guest and non-admins. Anybody can invite. But generally, this should not be there because I want to control only my company user and like member and user assigned with a specific admin role. We have a role for this. We call it guest inviter role. If you have that role, you can request or you can basically invite guests in this tenant. So this is something interesting to know that we have this option here where members, my users, my company employees, and also person with guest inviter role, they can invite guests. Or maybe if you want to go for more restrictions, you can go for only users assigned to a specific admin roles can invite guest user, not members, but only if you have guest inviter role, then only you can invite guest. And what if your company is not interested to invite guest user in this organization? Select this option and no one in the organization can invite guest. So this is something interesting that how we can control guest user level access and who can invite guest. Also here we configure settings related to collaboration. In collaboration test setting, we can configure if I will be allowed or this tenant will be allowed to send guest or adding the guest from any other tenant or not. Definitely here we have the permission. I can send the request, I can add. But question is to which domain user I can add. By default, you can invite, you can send invitation to any domain. Suppose I want to invite a user from ibm.com. In this setting, I can send invitation to ibm.com to any domain in my in a cross domain, cross tenant interaction. But we have option, I can go for deny invitation to a specific domain. So if I add here, only this domain will be denied and all others will be allowed. Now in this one, if you go for this one, this is the most restrictive. It says allow invitation only to the specified domain and block others. Now in this setting, if you go for adding a domain here, only this domain will be allowed. You can send invitation to this domain only in this setting and all other domain will be blocked. So it's up to you. If you are interested to send invitation to any domain, keep this by default, and this comes under this external collaboration setting. This is something that we are talking about, external collaboration settings. Now we have some more settings here. We have some common tenant properties. So tenant properties where we configure different kind of directory name, languages, tenant ID, and many other different things that we have that we can see, and we can definitely configure these settings. You can find this under properties tab, and you can configure these settings in your Entra ID. Now next is create, configure, and manage identities. What options we have? to create identities, configure them, and manage them. Let's talk about. So here we talk about these three objectives: create, configure, and manage users, create, configure, and manage groups, configure and manage device identities. Let's talk about these three one by one. So first of all, create, configure, and manage users. Definitely in Entra ID, we can create users. Generally, there are three types of users that we can see inside the Entra ID. The first type of users are cloud identity. These identities are that we are creating directly inside the cloud portal, inside the Entra ID. These all are known as cloud user, or you can say pure cloud user. But think about a company, they are planning to adopt cloud and they have their existing Active Directory domain service in on-premises, and they are maintaining their on-prem Active Directory system since many, many years. And they have around maybe 50,000 user accounts and objects. In case when they are going to adopt cloud, do you think they should create these 50,000 users and objects again in Entra ID manually? Answer is no. In this case, they can sync their on-prem Active Directory to Entra ID using directory synchronization process. In directory synchronization, basically we use some tools like Entra ID Connect. We install this tool in our on-prem and we configure synchronization between on-prem Active Directory system to Entra ID. And third type of user would be external user. You are going to invite them as guest and you add them in your Entra ID or Entra directory. So these are different kind of users what we see in cloud. So when we talk about user, how to create, there are many options. Let me show you. So for user, you can click on Entra ID and then users tab. Now here, you can add a new user here. There are two options. Either you can create a new user here inside this Entra directory, or you can invite external user, the guest user, using the second option. Now, so if you click on create new user, what do you say? You have to use a user principal name. For example, I'm going to create something Sam. And now this is the principal name, Sam at the domain name. If you have added any other domain in your tenant, that domain will be listed here. So you can use other domain as well. Right now, this is the only domain what I have with this tenant. Mail nickname is okay. Display name, maybe Sam West. And then we have password. Password is auto-generated, but if you want to basically, if you want to, remove this option, you can add your own password if you like to. Previously, this option was not there, but recently they have added this because in Entra ID, it was generating always the temporary password. But I can add password. For example, I want to add a password here. This one I can add. And if you want to keep the account disabled, I can remove this checkbox or I can enable this user account. Now in next, we can add more properties here. Informations like first name, Sam, last name, West. Then user type, you can select member or guest. If you click on guest, the entire process will be converted in inviting the user. But right now I'm using the member, then job title, and you can add more information. So you can add manager, you can say user locations, And these informations will be helpful if you're adding any user in your organization's directory. Next is assignment. You can add groups, you can add roles, and definitely if you have administrative units, you can add administrative units here. Right now, I don't have any administrative unit, that's why it's not highlighted. But definitely I can add this user, Sam West, to any group or to any role directly from here, or you can do it later. Once you are happy with all these informations, click on Review and Create, and simply click on Create to create this cloud user. You can see it says in notification tab, it says my user is created. Wonderful. Let me see where it is. Where is Sam West? I don't see Sam West here. Why? Because again, whatever you're going to change here is not instantaneous. This may take some time to reflect this information here, or you can simply click on these three dots, refresh, and I believe this time I can see Sam West here. You can see in the last, Sam West is here. So this is interesting that I can add user, and you can see this user is my member user. Now, definitely I can invite a guest from external user place, from external location, by simply going to the new user account, invite external user. And this time you have to add email ID where you want to send the invitation. We send an invitation to the cross-tenant user account. For example, I want to send this email to one of the external user. That is maybe now this is a kind of user account where I'm sending the email invitation. Display name, maybe this username. This is my email ID, so I'm using this one as testing. I can send invite message, and I can add message here if I want. Hi, Saurabh. Sending the invite. Please follow the instructions to connect with our tenant. Something like this. You can add CC and recipient, maybe some like in your organization, somebody is a kind of monitoring guy. You want to add that person information here, you can add. And this is actually the redirect URL when this person will receive the email and click on the invitation link, the person will be redirected to this myapplications.microsoft.com. Now, definitely, this is ready. I can add more properties here. First name, Saurabh Srivastav. And select, you can see it's a guest user type. You can convert in member if you like to, but right now it's guest. I can type job title, maybe external, maybe vendor, or maybe external admin, something like this. Okay. Maybe company name, you can add department, you can add manager. This person will be under which manager if this is going to be added as guest. You can add sponsors if you want, if you have any kind of sponsors there, other informations, and these other ad group or user locations. These all informations you can add here. Now, once it's done, assignments, you can assign this external user to any group, and also the roles you can assign, because it may be possible you are inviting Saurabh for some help, and for that activity, Saurabh needs some kind of admin rights. So in this case, You need to add the roles or groups if you want to, then review and create. And finally, you can have a look on this and click on invite. Now this is sending the invitation to my email ID. Now this is in the process. You can see the notification bar here on the top. And you can see user successfully invited. Now this user will be listed here. You can see this user in the last, but notice the user type is guest. It's not the member. Definitely when this user will receive the email, the user will accept the invitation, and what process will be there, I'll show you. We'll talk about how user will connect with this tenant. Now, creating user and inviting guest is not only possible from here, but you can create user from this Microsoft 365 Admin Center as well. So I can go to the users tab. I can create users from here. I can invite guest user from here if you like to. So click on active users on this. You can click on add a user. And differently, if you talk about comparing this add a user option with add user option here in Entra ID. So Microsoft 365 add a user option is much more, we can say, easy, and is simple to understand. So if you click on add a user option here, you can see we have a very good looking form. As good looking form, I can add maybe any username, for example, any username we can add. For example, Adam, maybe John, something like this. Any name you can add. Okay. Display name, username, maybe. So Adam. This is available and valid because I don't have any user as Adam here. Okay. You can see the automatically create a password, or you can create a new password if you want. And you can see here we can select require this user to change their password when they first sign in. I remove this if I want to make this password as default for the user. Location, by default, this is selecting US because this tenant is set to the US location. Definitely because we are creating this user in M365, this will be asking, would you like to assign any license to the user? Right now, we don't have any free license here, so leave it. Create user without license. Next. Here you can assign roles if you want. Right now, you can see admin center access we have here. We can assign more roles under show all by category. You can select collaboration roles, device roles, global role, identity related roles, other roles, read-only roles, and security and compliance roles. Which one is suitable for the person or for the user you are going to assign, you can select here. Else, simply go for user, finish adding. Now this user is created. Now in this, let me refresh this one once. And I'm expecting this user information here. You can see on the top, Adam. Now, in this Adam is not only reflecting here, but also this will be reflecting here in this. So now this is making clear that we have M365. This is using Entra ID as a backbone for the directory system. Also, we can invite guest from here under guest user. Notice this user already there because we have invited this user using Entra ID portal. So it's up to you. You want to add a guest user from here. You want to add a guest user from here. Both are the same thing. But in Entra ID, you get more options if you want. If you want to add some more informations for the user, for the guest. Because Microsoft 365 gives you very simple form where we only need necessary informations and then we can create it. Where Entra ID gives you all the forms in any user properties or any guest user properties that you can fill during the user creation. So this is something that what we see in user and guest creation. But definitely, are you going to add these users manually? If I give you a task, please add 100 user. And in this manual process, maybe this may take entire day. So we can plan for bulk operation. In bulk, we can go for this bulk option, bulk create and bulk invite. You can go for bulk delete as well. Basically, bulk create is a kind of a CSV file. We can download the template. We can fill the template with necessary informations. Every user information should be there in one row. First name, last name, UPN ID, email ID, address, phone number in one row. In this way, we can add multiple rows and then we can add that CSV file with multiple user informations to create users in one go. So this is something interesting that we have this bulk create option or even the bulk invite option if you want to invite external user in bulk. Similar options we have here as well. If you go for add user, we have add multiple user option. We have a graphical console. Here we can add up to 249 user. I can keep adding the rows here, rows, and we can add these informations. Or I can download a CSV file here with some examples data. According to that data, I can fill my user informations and then I can upload this CSV here to create my user in one go. Even you can see these videos are there if you want to watch that video, how to add multiple users. So these are very helpful informations available in M365 Admin Center as well. Now, so once you create user, then you can modify user properties. Like for example, if I click on any user here, I'm going to click on maybe user Alex, properties tab. Here you can see we have different informations. Definitely I can change the informations for this Alex user. I can go for seeing what kind of roles are assigned to this user. One role is assigned their billing admin. If this is the part of any admin unit, right now, no, because we don't have any admin unit. If this user is a part of some groups, yes, you can see this user is part of these all different groups here. All employees, leadership, market project, operations, retail. These are some groups in this trial tenant for testing and for learning. So this Alex user is a part of all these different groups. If some applications are assigned to this user, where this user is having the access, yes, Box, LinkedIn, Salesforce, these are the applications where this user is having the access. Also, what licenses are assigned to this user? You can see right now this user is holding Microsoft 365 E5 license and Microsoft Teams Enterprise license. Definitely, if you want to add more licenses, it says go to M365 Admin Center, and there you can add more licenses to this user. So license management is there in M365 Admin Center. How? You can click on this Admin Center here, go to the user account, select user. This will open Properties tab. And here, if you click on Licenses and Apps, you notice right now 2 licenses are assigned to this user. If you want to add more license, if you have in this list, you can simply select that license and that's it. Save changes, and now this license will be assigned to this user. So along with other capabilities, more capabilities will be available to this Alex user. You can verify this here again, refresh, and Power Apps for Developer license is assigned to this user. Now here, one more thing is important to understand. Suppose apart from this, I want to add more licenses in my organization. So here we have billing tab. Click on licenses to see what is the current list of licenses in this organization, in this tenant. Right now, we have only 3 types of licenses: Microsoft 365 E5 license, Microsoft Power Applications for Developer, and Microsoft Teams Enterprise license. These are total in 20 and 20 assigned. There are 10,000 licenses for Power Apps for Developer, only 2 assigned. And for Teams Enterprise, there are 20 licenses in this organization and 20 assigned. But definitely, if you want to add more licenses in this organization, you can add it. But you can say, okay, what if I want to assign licenses to maybe 100 user in one go? In this case, by simply going to the user manually one by one, assigning the license here is not the same option. So in this case, what you have to do, you have to come to this licenses tab, click on the license which you want to assign to the user, and simply add assign licenses and select your user here. Now you can quickly add 20 user at a time, or even you can assign the license to the groups. You go for groups here and assign the license to the group. So for example, you have a group of 100 users, simply add the group here and all the user inside the group, they will be automatically assigned with the licenses. But definitely there's a condition. You should have enough licenses here remaining. So in this way, you can go for the bulk assignment. Now you can say, what if I'm going to assign the user, and you see we have a cap of 20 user at a time. In this case, suppose I want to assign more user in this license. So in this case, either you can go for many times here. For example, only in 5 times, you can cover 100 user. But if you have number of users like 1,000, 10,000, in this case, PowerShell will be a very good option. So using PowerShell commands to assign licenses, it would be easy. Now, what if you want to add more licenses in your organization? Or maybe a different type of license you want to add here? How you add? It's easy. Go to the marketplace. And here you can go to all products. And you can search for which license you want to assign or you want to basically purchase in this organization. There are hundreds of licenses available, different types of licenses. For example, I want to purchase Power BI licenses. You can see we have Power BI licenses are here. Power BI Pro, Power BI Premium per user, or maybe I want to assign maybe Microsoft 365 licenses. You can see apart from these, in total, we have 29 different kind of licenses types. So if you click here, you see these are different licenses types, and you can see the pricing. For example, if I want to go for maybe Microsoft 365 Business Premium, I want to purchase this license. Maybe in my company, I have a need of 500 licenses that should be Business Premium. I can simply click on details. And here I can simply add the number, what I want to purchase. Okay, maximum you can go for 300 at a time. That quantity in one go, you can go for this one. So I have to pay this one. And this is $22 per user per month license cost. Definitely, you can start with a free trial as well. But the thing is, this is only going to work for 1 month. After that, you have to pay for this license. So there are possibilities. You can add licenses and you can assign these licenses to your user once these are added in your tenant and under this licenses tab. It's up to you how you want to purchase licenses. Also, you can check here if you go to the user properties tab in devices, which all devices are enrolled with this Alex user account. So these all information, these all properties you can configure, usage location you can configure if you want. Now in next, when we talk about groups, let's see what type of group options we have here. So generally in Microsoft Entra ID, there are two types of groups, security groups and Microsoft 365 groups. Security group is most commonly used to control permissions, assign rights to your users, whereas M365 group is used for collaboration. This is the core component of Microsoft Teams. This gives you shared mailbox access, SharePoint, and many other different kind of collaboration related capabilities. So when you create group here, if you go to groups tab and Intro ID and a new group, you have two options. You can create security group or the M365 group if you want. And also, if you click on groups here, you can see the detail in all groups. You can see what type of group you have. You can see this all company is a kind of M365 group. All employee is a distribution group that we create in Exchange Admin Center or in M365, especially for the group email activity. Digital Initiative Public Relations is a kind of Microsoft 365 group. And I believe, yeah, one group we have for SG Engineering, Security, Security Group Executive, Security Group Finance. These are security groups. So if you are using Entra ID, you can only create two types of groups, security or M365. But if you go to M365 Admin Center, here you have, if you go for Groups tab and click on Active Teams and Groups, here you can create different types of groups, M365, Distribution List, and Security Group. Here we get this distribution list extra that we can create, but definitely if you create this here, this will be listed under this Intra ID portal. Also, just for understanding, if in case you see, if you go to Exchange Admin Center, Exchange admins, they can create two more types of groups. So under Recipients tab, click on Groups. So not only M365 and distribution, Exchange admins, they can create dynamic distribution list and mail-enabled security group. A security group where we have the email ID attached. So basically, these groups are designed for the emailing purposes. That's why these are specifically listed here. So we have different places where we create different types of groups. But because we are in intra ID discussions, in intra ID, we have only two group options, that is M365 and security. Now, here one thing you have to keep in mind that is important, security group can be nested. One security group can be added in another security group, but M365 group cannot be added in a nesting. So if you are looking for a nesting in M365, no, this is not possible. Now here, we have option for dynamic groups. Let's talk about this, it's very interesting. When we create a group here in Intra ID, suppose I'm going to create a new group, security, we select honor and especially the members manually. Okay, let me select honor here. For example, I want to add my admin account as honor and member. Maybe I want to add Adal, Alex, Alan, Bianca, Cameron. These all are the members, and we create this group. Okay. In my company, there's a need that I want to manage this membership automatically. When we are looking for managing the membership automatically, we have to convert this group in a dynamic membership option. This is possible. And this is possible for, especially if you go for security group, you can select dynamic user and dynamic device. So based on the user properties, you can add a dynamic rule. So based on the user properties, user will be added or removed from this group automatically. For example, I want to create a security group that should be only for the user working in New York. I want if any user is working in New York office, that user should be added in the security group automatically. In this case, definitely I should select the user location or user city equals to New York, or that should be there when anybody is creating the user account in Entra ID. That property should be there. Or what if I want to create a group where I have 10,000 devices in my organization and I want to add Lenovo devices where they have Lenovo device serial number starting with maybe 2981. And I want to add all the devices, whatever we have in our organization. In that case, we go for dynamic device option and we select the properties that is device serial number and device manufacturing company. So we can add dynamic user options and dynamic device here. But when you go for M365, we only get option for the dynamic user, not the devices. So how this looks like, for example, just to test this, if I go to any user properties here, like if I go for Alex, and here in simple contact information, let me add department is equal to IT. Okay, save changes. Now here I'm going to create a security group with 5 members. Let me remove Alex from here just to be very sure. So Adal, Bianca, Alan, and Cameron White. These are the members. And yeah, that looks good. Group name is maybe IT admins. And group description for IT admins and create. Now here I'm selecting the membership manually. Okay, looks good. If I go for all groups here, I can see one security group here. That is IT admins. Okay. If I open these properties, I can see members here. And these are the 4 members here. This will be listed. Let me put this once. These are 4 members. What if I will convert this group in a dynamic, what happens? So I'll go to the properties tab of this group, change this membership type to the dynamic user. I have to add a dynamic query here. And then I can add a query like select the properties. I want this group should only contain admins where they have the department equals to IT. I select any properties here, whatever I like to add. This time I am planning for department, not country, not city, but department. Operator should be equals to a value IT. I have already added IT as value for my different IT admins, where department is equals to IT. Okay. I can add more expressions here where I have and or operator. And means this condition and this condition both should be satisfied. Then only user will be added. In case of or, either this condition or this condition should be satisfied, then only user will be added in the dynamic membership. I don't want to add many here. I would just want to go for only one and then click on save. Now, because I have added dynamic query, let me click on save here as well. And system will run this query in a maybe within minute. And you notice almost all the members will be kicked out from here. And Alex will be added. I'm not sure if any user is having the IT as a kind of department properties tab or department is equals to IT, they will stay here. But if no user is having department equals to IT, so they all will be kicked out. So let me refresh here. Let's see if this is going to give me that kind of view or not. This takes time. It's not very instantaneous. So this may take up to maybe 5 minutes when this will run, and this will actually maintain or manage the actual list of user based on the dynamic query. And you can see it now. All user kicked out, only Alex is fulfilling the rule. This is known as dynamic group option. And this is possible in both in security group and also in the M365 group as well. Now some more discussions. So definitely you can go to the any group properties tab. You can go to the configure membership options. If you want to add them in any admin unit, group membership, if any applications are assigned to the group, these all different kind of components are there, adding the members, honors, if you want to assign any role to this group. These all things you see here in a group properties tab. Also notice we have licenses. So group-based licenses, you can also see here if there is any license assigned to the group from this licensing portal. If you assign license to, let me show you here, to any group here, basically, you go to the properties of any license, then you have option for user or group. So if you assign something to a group, that will be listed here in this. So these are properties that we manage. Now to configure and manage device identities, let's see what we have. Basically, in Entra ID, there are 3 different types of devices we add. The first one is Entra ID registered. These are very simple type of devices in your organization. For example, your company is making this allow that users can bring their own device, their own personal devices, the laptops, tablets, mobile devices, and they can access organization's data there. In this case, these devices will be added under registered device condition. Basically, registered devices is something where we don't have full control on the device from Entra ID side or from MDM side, but we can configure application management policy. We call it MAM policy, mobile application management. So we can control applications inside the devices. Which application is being used to access organization's data? I can control that. So in many organizations, they enable BYOD, bring your own device. So Windows 10, 11, iOS, Android, macOS, these all kind of operating system, we can add in Entra ID registered devices. Now you have to keep in mind here, we don't have full control on the devices, but we can control the applications inside the device, like Outlook or OneDrive or Teams. These are all different applications we can control here using the MAM policy, mobile application management policies. Second type of devices that you see in Entra ID is Entra ID joined devices. These Entra ID joined devices are the pure corporate devices. Your organization is providing you corporate device, and there they are, they have added your Entra ID there. So that organization device where you are using your Entra ID is added there as a kind of Entra ID join device. And here we have full control using MDM, using Intune. I can control this device completely. I can control everything here. I can send wipe command. I can control this device. I can control the update, installation, security patches, everything I can control. This comes under Entra ID join devices. But there are possibilities in some organization. You have on-prem Active Directory environment, and you have a situation where your device is a kind of organization device, and this is already added to your Active Directory system here. So in this case, when any kind of organization device is not only added to on-prem Active Directory system, but this is also added to Microsoft Entra ID, this kind of device known as intra-hybrid joint devices. Definitely, you can manage this device from Active Directory system and from Entra ID place, from MDM side. So you can go for a kind of co-management. So this is something interesting, that if you have a kind of hybrid model where you have on-prem Active Directory system and then you have an Entra ID place, so I can add, or I can manage my devices from both the places. And in this case, definitely this device will be connected with my on-prem Active Directory account that is already synced with my Entra ID directory system. This is something you can say a kind of bit complex design in comparison to what other two designs we have seen. Now, when we talk about manage external identities, we're talking about this here already. So we have some discussions in this. Let's talk about. So we'll talk about describe external user, B2B accounts, and manage external collaborations. Basically, there are different types of accounts that we see in Entra ID. We have guest user account. These are pure external guests. We invite them. This receive the invitation link, and they will be added as a kind of external guest. Now then we have external member. What is external member? It's a very specific kind of account. What happens if I go to Entra ID place, users tab, I have this external user, Saurabh. If I click on this user properties, Now click on edit properties here. Keep in mind, this is a kind of external user, is a guest. What if, in case, if I change this user properties to member? Now this will be converted in external member. Definitely this will use external account, but has member level access in your organization. So we actually change the guest user type from here, and this will be converted in external member. Now, what are the internal guests? Looks confusing. Internal guests are, what if I have a user account, like I have user account Alex here in my organization. I will go to the Alex user properties, edit properties, and then changing this user from member to guest. Now, definitely this is my internal user, but I'm changing this user type as guest. So this will be converted in internal guest type of, you can say, capabilities. Is your account, but only have the guest level access in your organization. So these two options, external member and internal guest, these are basically related to the properties, what you change for a user or for a guest. And then we have internal member, like these all users, what you see here. All these members user, these are the internal member. So these are 4 different types of user here that we see: external guest, external member, then we have internal guest and internal members. Now, what next we have? So how we add any external guest user? It's simple. Using Entra ID, we send invitation. This invitation will be accepted by the person where I'm sending this. They will accept the invitation. They will click on the link. They will log in with their identity provider. And if they have MFA setup already there, they will be verifying it, and then they will be connected. They'll be accessing the applications what I've allowed for my guest user. So in this way, we enable any kind of B2B or business to business collaboration with guest user in my organization. So we can invite external user in your tenant typically as guest. External users use their existing credentials for authentication. They are assigned permissions for authorization, and you can restrict what external user can see and do, depending on what applications, what role I want to assign to my guest user. Now, what next? These kind of exercises are there. If you go to SC300 GitHub here, let me show you. If you're interested, you can search for SC300 GitHub, and you can find this first link, SC300 Identity and Access Administrator. You will have instructions and labs. I'm still waiting for this. Let me refresh this once. This is taking more than expected. Yeah, here it is. So under instructions and labs, you see we have different kind of labs are there. Manage user roles, working with tenant properties, configure external collaboration settings, and many others. Here you can see there are in total 28 labs. So if you have any guest user account, especially not guest, but if you have any trial user account with you, that trial user account you can use to perform these activities. For example, if you click on external collaboration, so you can go for using whatever the test account you have with you or any trial account, you can go for intra.microsoft.com. You can follow the instructions and you can see how we do it. So this is a place where you can see all the instructions, all the lab in this GitHub place. Once again, it's very simple. Search for SC300 GitHub, go for the first link, and then you will find a page like this. Click on instructions, and you see all these labs are here. So this exercise is related to the GitHub exercise. If you want to configure external collaboration, you can go for that. Now, external user from M365 workload, we have already seen that how we can go for users and guest user management from this M365 admin center. So from here, you can invite guests from here as well. Now also you can control guest user settings, guest user access. Like if you're inviting guest in maybe in your Entra ID and you are providing application access, you are providing data access. But what if you are going to invite the guest and you want to control at what level access they will have in Teams, in SharePoint? So we have this option available in specific applications. So for example, in Teams Admin Center here, if I go to Microsoft 365 Admin Center here in this, under Admin Center tab, we have Teams. So in this Teams, if you go for Users tab, you see Guest Access. Here we can control what level of guest access would be there. Basically, this is related to Microsoft Teams components. So this will be related to calling, meeting, messaging. So if guest user will be allowed for video conferencing or not, if guest user will be allowed in Meet Now in channels or not, if guest user will be able to edit, send messages in Teams or not. These all things we can control from here, or even we can switch off the guest access. It means if you're going to invite guests in Microsoft Teams, they will not have any access related to the calling, meeting, and all these. But definitely, this is by default on, and you can see these default settings. You can modify this if you like to. Even in external access, you can control here at application level. If you want to allow all external domains to communicate, you want to allow only specific external domain and block others, block only specific and allow others, and block all external domains. Suppose your company wants to be very, you can say, restrictive, and they don't want to enable their user to communicate to any other tenant user in Teams, so you can go for this, and this will block all the connections. So some settings you find here under Teams, and this guest and external user will be helpful in this Teams related settings. Some more. So how you can invite user individually or in bulk. We have already seen that. We can invite user in Entra ID by simply going to use invite option, or we can use CSV file if you want to invite them in bulk. Now to manage external user accounts in Entra ID, what do you say? So basically invite the user and then you can go to the properties. You can go for assign roles, licenses if you want to assign, what devices are added to that. So many different properties very similar to the user you can configure for your external users. And definitely you can see which role you want to assign to your guest user. Like for example, you're inviting someone as a contractor, as a kind of vendor, and they need some role from here. So definitely you can go to this place, assign roles, add assignment, and then you can select which role you want to assign to your external user or external member. Now here, I was talking about when you send invitation, what happens? When you send an invitation to someone, user will click on the redemption link. Now this will check, like if you have Azure Active Directory credentials, yes. This will ask you to sign in, and then you will be giving the consent, and then you'll be redirected to the resource what the requester is granted to you. If you don't have Active Directory credentials, you can go with SAML, WSFED identity provider, any other identity provider. You can, if you have this, yes, you can again sign in. If you don't have SAML, if you have Google Federation, yes, again, you can sign in. If no, if you have personal Microsoft account, outlook.com, live.com, hotmail.com, you can log in again here with this. Or even if you don't have this, you can go for requesting one-time passcode on email. Yes, enter the email, like enter the one-time passcode in the redemption link when you open it, and then you can connect it. Else, this will ask you to create at least one personal Microsoft account if you want to redeem, if you want to open the link and access the resources. So different options we have. Microsoft native Entra ID identity, SAML-based, Google Federation, personal Microsoft account, one-time passcode. These all things we can use to at least connect with where I have been invited. And in this way, this flow works. Now, in the next, what comes in cross-tenant access control? In cross-tenant access control, basically cross-tenant access control is something we can define here how I am going to connect with any external tenant or how external tenant is going to connect with me. Cross-tenant access setting gives you easy collaboration between external tenants for incoming, for inbound and outbound access. So we basically get this here in under external identities. We have cross-tenant access setting. And here we configure what kind of inbound access settings, how other tenants will collaborate with me, and how I will collaborate with other tenants using these inbound and outbound options. So if in case there is a need of a very simplified collaboration between your partners, or you are going to acquire any company there you want to communicate with that kind of users, you can easily configure cross-tenant access settings. So definitely we have option for syncing the users and attributes as well, not only for collaboration, but if you want to sync the user and attributes, suppose you are abc.com, you are acquiring xyz.com, you want abc.com and xyz.com user will be syncing to each other. Their attributes will be synced to each other for easy management and collaboration. So we can configure cross-tenant synchronization options. So this will automatically, you can automatically create and delete user in cross tenants. You can move attributes and settings with tenants. You can sync user benefits from features like conditional access and analytics to each other, to each different tenants. And this is push only from source tenant to a destination tenant. You have, this is a kind of push capabilities only. You push the attributes and information to other tenant, and other tenant will push their information to your tenant. These kind of options we have, but first we have to add the tenant in synchronization with tenant ID, and then we can test the connection if the connection is connected from one Entra ID tenant to the another Entra ID tenant. So these are different components that you see in this. Now next we have federation options. Now this is something, for example, you are in a kind of hybrid model. You have on-prem Active Directory and you have Entra ID. You want to federate your on-prem Active Directory to Entra ID, so we have option for federation. For this one, we have setup that we have to configure. We have to deploy ADFS server in on-prem. We should deploy federation proxy servers in our perimeter zone. And definitely for directory synchronization between Active Directory to Entra ID, we use Microsoft Entra Connect 2. This federation will help to achieve single sign-on. It means when I sync my user identities from Active Directory to Entra ID, we don't sync passwords. It means if user is syncing, if user is going to access any application here, user will be redirected to Entra ID, and this user is something that we have in Active Directory here. So definitely Entra ID will not be able to authenticate the user. In this case, this will redirect the connection to this proxy. Proxy will check with Federation server. Federation server will check with Active Directory if the user is valid or not. And if the user is valid, then based on this Federation trust between Entra ID and ADFS, Entra ID will grant access to the application. So this is interesting, that we can configure a federation and we can control authentication in our on-prem. But definitely for this, we have lots of requirements. We need, ADFS server that should be at least 2012 R2 or later. We need directory synchronization tool, that is intra-connect tool, configured between these two places, because this will be required to create trust between Federation server and Entra ID. So this tool should be configured here. If not, then this will not be possible to configure this federation. So we need local admin credentials for Federation servers for ADFS. We need local admin rights for, for any workgroup computer where you deploy web application proxy, or you can say Federation proxy server in perimeter zone. And we need the machine that you run the wizard, especially the Entra ID tool where you install, and that Entra ID tool we use to configure my ADFS and web proxy server configuration. So using Windows remote management, now this is interesting to understand. If you have these servers ready, you can simply use this tool to configure this ADFS and proxy and enable federation using wizards here. This use Windows remote management to manage these devices, install features and configurations, and enable federations here. So we can use this tool. So this is something like this. When you go to the tool, basically this tool is a formal name, Azure Active Directory Connect. Now it's known as Entra ID Connect tool. So you can go for this, and under this configuration, you see ADFS farm. You just need to locate your ADFS server farm and proxy server and simply click next. This will automatically locate the server, configure them, and enable federation between your Entra ID and this federation server. So this is a very helpful tool that can configure these kind of federation server, federation activities, federation things in your these kind of organization. Definitely, there are many other options, like you can go for, different kind of features are there in ADFS, repair the trust, federate with Microsoft Entra ID using alternate login ID, add ADFS server, add proxy server, add a federated domain. Many different kind of capabilities you see under the ADFS feature, and you can configure these based on the requirements. Now, again, for some more ideas about the Entra roles that we have already seen. So we have lots of roles here that we can add, and also we can definitely create custom roles if you like to, based on what kind of permissions I want to add. And I can assign these roles to my user and groups. So these are different things that we see in Entra ID role management. Now some more. To manage licenses, we're talking about, we can directly assign licenses to user. But when we talk about Entra ID licenses, mainly there are 4 types of license: free, Entra ID P1 and P2, and one we have Microsoft Entra ID governance license. These governance license are something where we have advanced feature, advanced capabilities. Let me show you this. If I go for this here, Microsoft Entra and you can see here Entra ID P1 license, P2 license, and Entra Suite, or you can say Entra governance license. Entra ID P1 license is per user $6 per user per month. P2 is $9 per user per month, and Entra Suite is $12 per user per month. Free is there. Free is always there with the free account that you create. Definitely, you can see different kind of options are there. This kind of solid check is something that this feature is completely available. A hollow check is something like some features are missing here. But here you can see in governance license, we have almost all the advanced identity protection, governance, verified ID, internet access, private access, these all are there. If you're looking for more advanced capabilities, you have to pay for more. But you can see if you talk about intra-identity protection, this is something risk-based conditional access, dynamic sign-in assessment, dynamic user assessment. These are not there in P1 license. This comes in P2 license. So generally P2 includes most of the advanced components that we use. And generally, if you are starting with any organization configuration, P2 is sufficient to start with, and you get almost all the up to the level features. But you can plan for governance license as well. But definitely, these licenses like P1, P2, these are already included in our this E360 Microsoft 365 E5 license. It's already there. You don't need to basically add additional even a P1 or P2 license to the user. So you have to look into that. If any license already included, you don't need to add that license separately to that user to or any user in your organization. Definitely, this license supports group-based licensing as well. So either you can assign the license to your individual user manually, or you can assign license to a dedicated group. Actually, group-based licensing is very easy. Like if I assign the license to the retail sales, suppose there are 3 users, these all 3 will be assigned with the license. Now, if I move user 2 out of this group, so that user 2 license will be revoked. Once this user 2 will move back, again user 2 will be assigned with this license. So group-based licensing is easy to manage instead of assigning the license to the user individually. So this is something that what we see in group-based licensing, and this license can be assigned to any security group. Keep in mind. So this is all what we have in our first day discussion. And here you have this homework activity. We will perform some lab activity that is already available there in GitHub lab links. Add affiliated identity part provider, explore dynamic groups. So if you have any hands-on lab available with you, use that lab, perform the lab activities there. And you can also consider using GitHub lab instructions if you want to try more. So thank you so much for joining this today's session. We have completed this day 1 agenda so far, where we configure and manage Microsoft Entra ID, implement initial configuration of Microsoft Entra ID, create, configure, and manage identities, and implement and manage external identities. So once again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget to join our next session, where we talk about these interesting topics, mainly based on MFA and authentication related things. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Technology is moving fast. Closing the skills gap can help your team optimize and stay focused on what's ahead, rather than constantly playing tech catch-up. That's why it's important to keep Microsoft certifications active. Here's everything you need to know about renewing your team's certifications. We have introduced a free certification renewal process for role-based and specialty certifications to help you stay current with skills you need to remain up to date in your job role. Please note that the fundamentals certifications do not expire. In order to renew, you don't need to schedule and take an exam through Pearson VUE. Assessments are shorter than the exam. We encourage you to renew early, as soon as you are eligible. You won't lose time by renewing early, as the extension date is not based on the date that you choose to renew, but 1 year from certification expiration date. To access renewal assessment, you need to connect your certification profile to your Microsoft Learn profile only the first time. Once connected, you don't need to repeat this step in future to access renewal assessments. You can take the assessment as many times as you need. But after the second try, you will need to wait at least 24 hours before your next attempt. Embracing a growth mindset and the need for continuous learning can help you optimize and successfully perform in job roles. With a renewed Microsoft certification, globally recognized and industry-endorsed evidence of mastered real-world skills, you will also be able to demonstrate your proficiency in keeping pace with technology.